Let's scale this out a little bit bigger, shall we? Let's take a look at what's going on globally on this. So I don't have the entire list. We'd be here for an hour. But just to generalize it, what we've got going on a global conflict scale, we got Russia, Ukraine, NATO, which I'm sure a lot of you are paying attention to what's going on with NATO. You got giant exercises. You've got the Swedish guy. I've reported about that, saying there's a chance that they could go to war. I'm seeing some stuff possibly from Australia prepping for war and stuff like that too. So we got Russia, Ukraine, NATO. We got North Korea, South Korea. North Korea is getting... I know over the years we've talked about Little Rocket Man and what's going on. He likes to do a lot of hollow threats and talk and all that stuff. But he's on edge, man. That dude is trigger. He wants to pull the trigger. Things are getting a lot closer. I mean, launching stuff at South Korea now, not anything like explosive or dangerous or anything, but doing exercises and whatnot. He's ready to push the button. So be watching North Korea. China, Taiwan, U.S., UK with Yemen and the Houthis. We see what's going on with that. Iran, Iraq, everything going on there. We got Iran all over the place. We can't even list everything that they're involved with because the amount of proxies that they're connected to. Another one to watch is Sudan and South Sudan. Things are getting very fiery down there. We also know Sudan is a player in Ezekiel 38, so that's something to keep in mind, especially since they have an election. South Sudan has an election coming up as well. We also do know that the Russians are involved in their political cabinets, just like Turkey is involved with Libya's political cabinets. So keep that in mind. Both of them are players. And again, there's a bunch more. But we see what's going on. We got all this chaos happening globally. Everywhere we look, we're seeing more rumors, more threats, more attacks, more clashes, more escalation. It's just bananas out there. Or maybe bananas Foster because everything's on fire. I don't know. Just trying to make funny, make fun. Okay. The thing is, what we're seeing in the news or directly from global administrators and militaries is not even close to the reality of what's taking place. I hope people have a grasp on that by now. If you don't, everything that you see in the news, everything that comes from government administrations, and everything that you see coming from the speakers of militaries is just not the whole picture or not even reality of what's truly happening. I hope everybody understands that because obviously they're going to put out information that helps them. That's part of the propaganda. They put out stuff that helps them. That's just how it goes. And so they put out a lot of lies, a lot of false stuff. I'll give you a little hint. This Friday, I play some videos from some CIA guys back from the 60s and 70s. Make sure you check that out. You'll understand what I'm talking about. Now, again, I understand that might confuse some people, but the reality is always different from what the papers, going old school again, papers, the news, especially now when the game players are moving their armies across the board. They are going to put out the information that they need to, that's in order to help them, whether it's public opinion, public minds, psyops, or sending signals. That's another thing people don't realize. Certain news things are fed information to send out signals to other countries. So when they read that, they understand the signal, and then their papers or their moves can be made that way too. That's actually something that they do in war and these geopolitical things. So keep that in mind. Now, am I claiming to know what's really going on? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But when viewing the whole board, again, the game of Risk, when we view the whole board with an understanding of a game rather than political leaders going off their own plans, it makes it easier to process things. The best way to do this stuff is to really just try and get from, because I know everybody tends to like zone in on certain things, and you have to at certain points, but really just view the board from a global scale. Pay attention to who these leaders are and who they know, that's an important thing to understand. They all know each other. Same things happened in World War II and World War I and all these things. Everybody knows each other. And so if you view it as them just going along with this plan, this game, it makes it easier to process information. It really does. Even if it's not true information, it still makes it easier to process. And you can kind of go, yeah, come on. You sure about that? So just like previous wars, everything has a prepping plan, a desired outcome, and an orchestration team. So let me take you back. I got proof. I'm not just talking out of nowhere. Let me take you back in history to 1871. And just by that date alone, I'm sure some of you know exactly where I'm going with this. That's okay. I'm going to take you back to 1871 to one of the global leaders, even though he may not be recognized as such. We do know that he is one of the global leaders in a global game master organization. Now, if you guys don't know board games, there's usually a game master, or Monopoly has a banker. They're kind of the ones overseeing the entire thing. Well, this global leader is a part of that game master organization, the ones who are overseeing everything. And that would be none other than Albert Pike, known as the Scottish Rite Visionary, who wrote a letter to an Italian by the name of Manzini. Now, the letter was briefly displayed in the British Museum before being removed. I wonder why. We're about to find out why. And the letter was then published in 1925 and in a book. So you may have seen, read, or heard this before, but we're blasted, I guess you could say, blasted from every which way about political agenda. And we tend to forget things that clear up that confusion. Again, when we have so much news and information coming at us, sometimes we forget the very key element of people or letters or information that we know about that clear up all the confusion. But because we have so much stuff coming in, that file just tends to move further back into the filing cabinet. So let's read Pike's letter about the planned 3 world wars. Let's also not forget the date. Whether you believe it's 1871 or whether you believe it's 1925, we can confirm from the book published in 1925 that this stuff was written beforehand. So keep those dates in mind. Let's take a look at this letter. All right. First up, again, 1871 or 1925, however you want to look at it. The First World War must be brought about in order to permit the Illuminati to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia and of making that country a fortress of atheistic communism. The divergences caused by the agentur or agents of the Illuminati between the British and Germanic empires empires will be used to foment this war. At the end of the war, communism will be built and used in order to destroy the other governments and in order to weaken the religions. How did World War I turn out? Pretty much identical to what he was saying here. And also keep in mind, and I've done a dive on this, who was orchestrating World War I? Well, Rockefellers, Carnegie, Baruch, and some other ones. Keep in mind, and I talked about this, about the Club of Rome was formed at a Freemason lodge owned by the Rockefellers. It was a Rockefeller estate, but it was a Freemason lodge in 1968. So the Rockefellers, who orchestrated World War I, were part of the same group as this guy. Interesting, right? Let's move over to World War II. Second World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences between the fascists and the political Zionists. This war must be brought about so that Nazism, was that even a thing back then in 1871? I'm not sure. might be worth looking into, is destroyed, and that the political Zionism be strong enough to institute a sovereign state of Israel in Palestine. During the Second World War, international communism must be strong enough in order to balance Christendom, which would then be restrained and held in check until the time when we would need it to be the final social cataclysm. Now, remember, when did Israel become a nation again? When did the Jews take the state back? That would be 1948, after all of this chaos of World War II. And who approved all that? Who led the way on that? That would be the League of Nations or the United Nations, which, by the way, did I remember? That's right. I did talk about how World War I was orchestrated by the Rockefellers in order to bring about the League of Nations or the UN, which then eventually led to Israel taking it back, almost identical to how Albert Pike in 1871 described it. Fascinating, isn't it? Almost like there's a game master orchestrating all these events. So Albert Pike, so far in this letter, described 2 world wars that turned out exactly how he said they would. Well, he goes on to talk about World War III. The Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leaders of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionists, the state of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, man, this is reading like today's headlines, isn't it? Meanwhile, the other nations, once more divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. We shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Keeps going. Then everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirits will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in the public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, from which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. Written in 1871 and eventually published in 1925. Now, World War I, nailed it. World War II, got it. World War III, boy, that's looking pretty similar. If you don't mind me asking or saying whatever. Remember, he was a part of the Scottish Rite and a 33rd degree Freemason. Orchestrators of World War I and World War II, which are verifiable, were also part of the Freemasons. And everything is playing out exactly how they planned it. Now, some people like to say he was a prophet and he foretold things. I like to sit there and take it from the element of he was fed a demonic instruction and then they're putting it into action. That's how I like to put it. Because if you guys don't remember, just like Alice Bailey, she was also given demonic instructions, they say from her ascended master, it's demons, to create a one world order and global religion through education. Boy, howdy, are we seeing that being done. All of this is lining up to bring in the beast. You know how it talks about how it's, universal manifestation of the doctrine of Lucifer, and then it's going to be put into public view and all this stuff. It's the Antichrist. He's going to step out and fix it all. That's what the Bible says. That's what the Bible tells us, right?